Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I want to talk about the LGBT community, and I want to start by addressing people who see it as a problem or just have, any kind of negative opinion about being gay, bisexual, whatever. If you have that mentality, I just want to remind you that you don't want to handle it like a bully. You don't want to be an asshole. You want to act like an adult. I think it is possible to have respectful conversations about these issues without being disrespectful needlessly. It's possible to have adult conversations, and honestly, that goes for both sides because I see a lot of childish slapping, like kids beating each other up on a playground, and it's very sad. There's so many comments on social media where people will just go in endless threads arguing with each other. I see comments of if there's like a video that has anything um remotely queer in it, even if it's just like a guy acting slightly feminine or something, there will be comments saying hashtag bring back bullying, or even like a woman who is maybe overweight or something like that. People will say this is why we need to bully people and bring back fat shaming and whatever. People are acting like children, and it's just ridiculous. You should be embarrassed, honestly. If you find yourself leaving a comment like that, just stop it dead in its tracks and say, is there a better way that I can handle this? Maybe the issue is valid. Maybe there is some argument to be had there, but you're not going to get anywhere by acting like a child. So please, for the love of God, chill out. If you're going to watch this video, have an open mind because this is more geared toward people who are part of the LGBT community or just minorities in general, but I'm mainly focusing on that. So this is just kind of explaining um, some of the different areas of it, and you know keep an open mind. So I want to start by I feel like I have to burp. Yep, I did. Um, Sorry about that. I want to start by talking about um, whether or not it's moral. So this is something that I think a lot of people in the queer community, and I'm just going to refer to it as that just to make it easier, just kind of a all-encompassing term. Um, People in the queer community struggle with wondering sometimes if being gay, bisexual, transgender, if that's normal, if there's something um, abnormal, unnatural, or immoral about it. Those are mainly the arguments that it's immoral, which would imply that it's hurting someone, that it's, I think that's what morality is connected to, is whether or not you're hurting other people. But I'll break this down in a second. Then the other thing is it unnatural? Is it abnormal? First of all, it's none of these things. I'll start with morality. Morality is something that a lot of people, even completely unrelated to discussions to minorities, struggle to define. People say that it comes from religion. There are moral philosophers who have a bunch of different sources for their philosophy, a bunch of different things that they believe. People say that without religion, without a God telling you what's right and wrong, that you don't have any sense of what's right and wrong. And I don't think that's true. Excuse me. Almost burped again. That is something I tend to do quite a bit. I don't know why. Maybe I talk too fast or something. I don't know. So I think the concept of a god being the sayer of what's right and wrong begs the question, how does he know? What makes him so powerful that he gets to just say that? And people will say, well, he's the creator of existence. He's personally responsible for all things that exist. He exists outside of the universe, and he knows everything. And I would still say, yeah, but he gave us free will. And, you're basically telling me that with my free will, I shouldn't be questioning things. I feel like I should. I feel like, because the same people who tell you that there's a God will also tell you that he gave you free will. Otherwise, they won't be able to explain why he sometimes doesn't answer your prayers or why horrible, horrible things happen. People just say that it's because of free will or it's part of God's plan or whatever. it's very messy, and I think a lot of these people don't even know what they're talking about, if I'm being honest, because I have my own beliefs regarding this subject, and I don't want to bother getting into it right now. But what I will say is that there are bits of truth in a lot of the things that you hear, but the people who talk about it haven't the slightest understanding of it. And it's sad because they often just use it to promote hate speech, pretty much. Just hurt, not even hate speech, but just like things that are geared toward hurting people. Things that will leave people with less access to rights, to situations, put them in situations where they might get beat up or kill themselves. These are things that we generally should try to avoid if we're going to be acting like adults, like I said at the beginning of the video. And yet there are people who spend a lot of their time using their belief systems to justify creating these situations that result in people getting hurt and or killed. So just pay attention to how your actions cause a ripple effect. Anyway, we're talking about morality and whether or not it comes from God. So, I think if you want to say that God exists outside of the universe and he is the great sayer of what's right and wrong, I would say, okay, but you gave me free will, which means I have the free will to question what you're saying. And if it doesn't make sense to me, I think you should have to explain it to me. Why should I be expected to follow a rule that doesn't make sense? So let's say, hypothetically, God creates the universe, creates all of us, gives us free will, and then says every day at 2 p.m., you have to do the splits or something, or you have to walk on your hands. Otherwise, I'll send you to hell for eternity. Wouldn't you say, but why? What? That makes no sense. Are you kidding me? And and then you'd be like, but I don't want to go to hell, so I guess I'll do it. Now what situation are you in? You're in a situation where an overpowered um, tyrant has basically just told you it's my way or the highway. You're going to do what I say, or you're going to burn in hell for eternity. And also, I love you. I love that part that people always tell you that God loves you, while simultaneously describing him as this ridiculously judgmental um, tyrant. I don't know what other word to use. It just sounds like someone who just makes shit up and says you're going to do it because I said so. I think in any situation, whether it be a god or your parents or anything, because I said so is not an acceptable answer. And again, if we're acting like adults, we cannot just do something because someone says so. We have to think for ourselves. We have to do something because it makes sense. And that's the same way in court. Like, you can dispute laws that don't make sense. That's why people have to agree on things. That's why there's like a jury, and like there's systems in place to make sure that people aren't just doing things because some overpowered person told them to do it. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that there aren't situations like that happening in the justice system anyway, but I think as a concept, we understand that that's something that isn't good. So even though it's happening, that's another topic. Um, but anyway, I think we have to be able to question things. So when God, if you actually look at the things that God says to do and not do, most of these things make sense. Most of the things you can understand regarding, your own well-being and how it, factors to everyone around you. Even if you only care about yourself, you can still understand that you're part of the universe. Everything exists, and you can't really hurt someone else without also hurting yourself. Everything's connected. That's logic. That makes sense. So morality to me is based on how well we're treating ourselves and treating others. And, just being like, I feel like being a good person is just kind of innate. It's completely logical. It's also intuitive. You just kind of know it. Sometimes you don't even figure it out logically and you still know the difference. You just know this is wrong. And you're like, I feel in my gut that this is wrong. I'll go figure out why later. But for now, I'm just going to trust my gut. And we really have stopped doing that because we're like, well, I'm going to ignore my gut and I'm going to just focus on my emotions and my fears and just do whatever this authority figure tells me to do just because I'm afraid of the punishment if I don't do it. That's not healthy. Don't do that to yourself. That has nothing to do with morality. There is no singular being that is just the sayer of what's right and wrong. If God really is the creator of the universe, this great all powerful presence, then God's logic The logic that should be running through all of us, through existence itself, should be innate. That is what we would be tapping into. You don't need to read somebody's word and take your word for it. If God is as powerful as you say, then we are basically part of God because everything in existence came from God. So why would his authority and word be contrary to logic, since God apparently also would have invented logic and pretty much everything that you would even think? So it just doesn't make sense. It clearly just looks like a human being trying to control other human beings and using their authority and power as a way to scare people and control people. And that is not good. And we have moved past that. I mean, it's ridiculous that there are still people who don't know how to think for themselves. Um, and they try to say that it's about religion, but really it's just about fear. They're afraid to think for themselves. They don't like questioning things, and it's a cult. There's brainwashing, and it's a cult. That's all that I can say about that. Is it unnatural? We'll move on to this now. So, you know what? Let me wrap up how it connects to homosexuality and bisexuality and everything in the LGBT community. Is anything in the LGBT community actually harmful to yourself or to others? I would say we'll take it one at a time. Homosexuality. I was almost gonna say homosexual activity, but both honestly are completely harmless. Two consenting adults. It doesn't matter what they do. Um, and it doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't really have any I'm going to bring in one little argument real quick. People say, well, what about incest? That could be two consenting adults. And I would say, well, that's a whole different topic that has nothing to do with the LGBT community. um, it also has nothing to do with morality. I think the concept of incest is more related to psychology, and it's messy, but it's not technically immoral, it's not technically wrong. It's just that there's a lot to unpack there from a psychological standpoint, and I think it's interesting, but I don't think that you should use that as an argument to say that some things that you might not perceive, because think about the argument that you would be making. You're basically saying, um, well, I can't logically say that incest is wrong, therefore it still must be wrong just because what? God said so, or your gut says so, or whatever. Well, there may be a reason why your gut says so. It's certainly not good, but that doesn't mean that it also has no logic. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack from a psychological standpoint. However, that doesn't mean that you should just say it's bad because God said so. That's still not a good excuse. There is logic behind it, and it has nothing to do with morality. That really doesn't relate. So, because again, nobody's really hurting anybody except it's iffy. It depends on the situation. There are times when it could actually cause pain or be coming from a place of pain, but um, that's to me not a valid argument to excuse saying, well, let's just say not everything can be done. Um, Not all moral right and wrong can be decided through logic, and that's a slippery slope to say that it's all logical. So let's just take God's word for it. People try so hard to find ways to make that argument, and it never works. Just stop. Just stop it. That's not a good argument to even try to make. What is your point? You're fighting against freedom. Do you realize that? You say it's a slippery slope. Toward what? Freedom? Logic? Are you kidding me? You really would just rather have people living in fear of a fictional being? I'm not saying God is fictional, but certainly he doesn't have an ego. Certainly he isn't this like human like being that people seem to describe him as. You know, that just doesn't make any sense. How could that possibly be the depiction you have in your mind of God? That is basically just like a giant angry old white human with a white beard just sitting in the sky having opinions and judging people. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around this. It's complete nonsense to me, but nevertheless, people believe it, and it is what it is. But if they want to make actual logical arguments, they're going to have to do it from a place that's not emotional and childish and just yelling at each other. Use your head. I mean, and at this point, honestly, don't even try to make arguments in favor of that because it's just you're wasting your time. It's like trying to prove that the earth is flat. Just stop. You know, I don't know what else to say at this point about that, but because there really are people we'll try to prove the Earth is flat. That's not even a joke. There are people floating around there thinking that that they're on a flat surface. Um, so yeah, is it immoral? I would say it doesn't hurt anybody. Um, and that's all you need to really worry about regarding that. Um, Being trans, you could say, does that hurt yourself? Maybe, maybe sometimes. If you get surgery, if you, I don't know, maybe you botch the surgery, maybe you actually literally hurt yourself, but it's still up to you. It's your body. You can do whatever you want with it. No one gets mad at you when you cut your hair, when you, I don't know, put makeup on. If you get like, I don't know, you maybe have like your nose is all messed up and you get surgery to make it look normal or something. Maybe your nose is like this your whole life and you want to fix that. No one compares that to being transgender. No one says that that's a terrible thing. You have a giant like cyst or something. I don't know. Like, people make changes to their body all the time, and it's a personal decision. It only affects you and the people who have to look at you. And honestly, I think people really don't realize how similar being transgender is to those things because it's literally just changing your body, at least getting as far as getting surgery goes, to appear how you want to appear, which is your prerogative. If you later on down the road regret it, that does not make it immoral or wrong. It just means you changed your mind, which everyone has the right to do at any point. And that's fine. Go from there. That's all you can do is go from there. Then get surgery to undo it or what, but don't just go around saying, I regretted my surgery, therefore every transgender person should not do it, even though the regret rate is extremely low. But whatever, you want to go that route, that's fine. Have fun making a victim out of yourself and using people who've detransitioned as um, basically pawns in your game to prove a stupid point to try and prevent people from having control over their own bodies and how they want to be perceived. It's ridiculous. So that is not immoral either. It doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't hurt you because changing your mind is not the same thing. The only way that it would hurt you is if it was a mistake. But again, that could happen in any kind of surgery. So regarding surgery, it's not a big deal. Regarding changing the way you present yourself, if you're not going to get surgery, but you're still going to be trans, that's fine. Um, Again, it doesn't hurt anybody, so it's not immoral. So we can move past the morality argument. It has nothing to do with morality. That is out the window. Any argument about whether it's right or wrong, you can relax, um, and let's focus on, is it natural? Um, yes, quite simply, it is. Homosexuality, anyway, is observed in nature. There are a ton of different animal species that we've seen homosexual behavior. Once again, the morality argument creeps in, and people say, well, animals rape each other too. Does that mean that we should do that? We can't just do everything animals do. I hear that argument all the time, and I would say, well, once again, use your head, use logic. um, I could turn that around on you and say, well, animals also sometimes have babies. Does that mean that we should never have babies? No, we're gonna sometimes do things that animals do. Does that mean we should do everything animals do? No. No one is trying to make that point. So you sound stupid even bring that argument to the table. I never said do everything animals do. I just said if animals do it, that proves that it's natural, which has nothing to do with morality. So it's natural. Relax. Yeah, I don't know what else I can say about that. Regarding being trans, I don't know. I mean, there probably is something related to that in the animal kingdom. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, to be honest. I have more like spiritual beliefs on that, but that's neither here nor there. So, is there anything I want to say on natural other than that? It's pretty much covers it. Is it normal? Who cares? Quite simply, normal is just a word that means it's true for a lot of people. But why are you comparing yourself to other people in the first place? What does it matter if you're normal or not? All that matters is that you're staying focused on what you're here to do, staying in your lane, getting your own work done, not comparing yourself to others, not judging yourself, and just just go ahead and do it. Do whatever you're here to do. Trust your gut, follow your instincts all the time. Don't just do one thing and then stick with it, even if you start to feel like it's no longer right for you. It doesn't mean that it's right. Maybe you're just afraid. But don't rule anything out. Always be thinking, always be weighing options. Don't overthink. Don't like spiral and stress yourself out. But don't just um don't just listen to your whims and your emotions either. Just take time to think, use your intuition, learn how to use your intuition, and you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about normal. So, is there anything else I want to say? I want to address the concept of like gender at this point because I think people all understand homosexuality and bisexuality. It's pretty clear. It's that you are sexually attracted to someone of the same sex or, both sexes. But there's a lot of newer stuff that's being talked about now about like, can you be neither male nor female? Can you be female if you're male? And, things like that. And I think that it raises some interesting questions about what gender is. Technically, if you look at the definitions of gender and sex, they're defined as two different things. Excuse me. Sex is defined as your body, your anatomy, and gender is more how you present yourself, which changes over time. Like there was a time when men presented themselves the way that women do now, and vice versa. So gender, in that sense, is kind of a meaningless word because it really only refers to um, how people present themselves, like roles that they're playing, rather than anything that's actually innate, anything that's actually related to masculine or feminine energies. And I do think that those things are innate. I think that if you just look at people's bodies, if you just look at everything in the universe, in this on this planet, there is masculine and feminine everywhere. It's just kind of it's just undeniably there. And I think that there are certain um, properties that both of these things each have. And I think that a lot of them have been kind of mixed and confused over the years. A lot of like feminine things have been associated with masculinity, and that's kind of where the concept of gender comes in, where it just becomes like what people say it is rather than what it actually is. So I think that people who are non-binary, meaning that they're neither male nor female, at least in terms of gender, obviously in terms of sex they're clearly one or the other, unless they're actually intersex, which is like hermaphrodite, which basically just means that they even physically are like some combination of the two, which I'm sure you can imagine. But, that is extremely rare. Um, but most non binary people are not intersex. They just are saying that they're trying to kind of reject the gender roles, which is fine. But what confuses me about that, what I personally don't get, is that they say that they're changing the way they present themselves and changing their gender, but then they want to tell me how to refer to them. They want to have me refer to them as being neither male nor female, even if I can clearly see that they're male or female, which confuses me. Like I can't look at a guy and have him tell me to refer to him as they them. My brain will not compute that, and I can try, but it's going to feel forced every time I do it. And and vice versa. If the like if it's a woman and she's telling me to refer to her as they them and say it's not a woman, it's a person. It's like I think that it's coming from a place of truth. I think that you can acknowledge that being non-binary, that you're basically that you are internally something different from what you are externally. That's valid. And I think that's because, we kind of realize just that you don't have to behave in any kind of specific way just because of your body. However, there is no denying that your anatomy, your body, even if you're intersex, it comes with things that you can't control. there's no denying that the experience of a cisgender woman, someone who's born with a woman's body and still identifies as a woman, is going to be completely different to the experience of a transgender woman, because women experience completely different things. I'm not even just talking about like pregnancy and all that, but just the way that women are treated, the way that women are raised and expected to behave, versus someone who was raised as a male and then walking around saying that they're a female. It's like, that's totally valid if you feel like you more accurately can describe yourself as a female. You present yourself as a female, you look like that, you dress like that. And that again is subjective. There are different ways to dress or present. Doesn't even mean that you have to dress a certain way, because that's again part of the category of things that we've just kind of made up. Um, it doesn't actually have anything to do with real feminine or masculine qualities. It's more so just, we just said, well, I guess women have dresses, but there was a time when men had dresses. So that kind of doesn't matter. But let's just say that you feel like you align more with feminine qualities, and yet you're male. That's totally fine. You can present yourself as a female. You can ask people to refer to you as a female, but at the same time, you can't deny that you're trans. You can't like pretend that that you have a different experience. So just be okay with what your situation is and where you are. Obviously, if you're in a situation where it's dangerous to come out, like maybe you pass really well and people don't know that you're trans, you don't have to tell them if you feel unsafe telling them. But you don't want to go around acting like every trans person should just be seen as the gender that they're presenting as, because that is just, it's just not accurate. That's the only reason. It's not accurate, and it's sort of like, I mean, it would be like if a bunch of white people tried to act like they knew what it was like to experience racism, which I think a lot of people understand that that's like not something you can really do. Um, to even say that white people can experience racism is like a controversial statement. So it's kind of the same thing. You don't want to act like because imagine like being a woman, experiencing all of the things that you experience as a woman, and then having a man come up to you and say, "I'm a woman and I deserve women's rights." And it's like, you absolutely deserve rights. You absolutely are a minority and are treated terribly, but you still have a different experience, and you're treated terribly for different reasons. So it's just, it's a matter of just acknowledging the reality of your situation, acknowledging where you are, knowing that you still deserve to be treated well. You still deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and kindness by everyone, and you should always fight for that. But it doesn't mean that you're a woman. It just means you're a trans woman, which is a different thing, and both are totally valid. That's all that it is. So just use your common sense regarding safety. If you genuinely feel unsafe, you don't have to say, well, you don't know. I can't always tell people that I'm trans. I can't always make it a separate thing. I have to sometimes present myself as a woman. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. That's your business. You can decide on your own what to do. I'm just referring to a lot of the ideas that are being pushed out now, and how I think that they may be a little bit counterproductive. It's coming from a good place, but it's actually just, it's causing too much confusion, and we really need to just talk about this and figure it out like adults, instead of just yelling at each other and saying it's this way, and then someone else is saying, no, that's ridiculous, it's that way. Let's actually try and figure out what it really is. That's what I'm trying to do. So regarding non-binary, it's kind of the same thing. I could say a lot of the same things about it. You just don't really align with masculine or feminine energies, or maybe you align with both. I mean, personally, I don't think it's possible to completely avoid those two things, because it's sort of like living in a universe that is entirely made up of um, light energy and dark energy, and you're saying that you're going to be neither light nor dark, and it's like, no, you're going to be one or the other, or a combination of the two. You can't be completely neither, because that's literally everywhere. It would be like walking into a room filled with water and saying that you're going to be in a dry part of it. It's like, no, there is no dry part of it. It's you're going to be wet. That's just what it is. So it's it's just a matter of not fully diving into one side. You know, you're just kind of like stepping back. You're not fully feminine, you're not fully masculine, but you're stepping back and you're just saying, I'm just gonna pick the best of both worlds and just be me and make, you know, something more unique out of it. And that's, again, totally fine. But I don't think that means that other people should have to see you as something separate from being male or female. Because even people who say that, you know, the reason that their non binary identity is valid is that gender and sex are different things, they don't seem to know where the line is drawn because they'll acknowledge that there's a difference between gender and sex, but then they'll tell you to refer to them as if their sex is not what it is. They'll be like, you know, clearly a female biologically, and then they'll be like, you have to refer to me as a person. You have to use they, them to refer to me. I don't get that. I just don't get it. Um, because I think the whole purpose of pronouns are to make things easier, you know, to make referring to someone easier. Otherwise, we would just use their name. Tristan said this, and then Tristan said that, and then Tristan said this. Eventually, you just want to say, and then he said this, and he said that. It's to shorten things and make it easier. And by incorporating they, them pronouns, those are supposed to be used when you're referring to someone whose identity is unknown. Not someone who you know as a person, you know their name, you know everything, like what I'm doing right now, their name. Because we're talking about a hypothetical person. When you're talking about an actual person who you know and like have in your life and your circle, unless they genuinely are a mystery, you look at them and your brain just cannot figure out what you're looking at, using they them pronouns is going to feel really awkward. And that's just a reality. Um, because most of the time, it's pretty clear what you're looking at. And it's really hard to wrap your head around using neutral language when it just doesn't flow. It doesn't flow. That's the simplest reason for it. It doesn't come out of the mouth well. And that kind of defeats the purpose of using pronouns in the first place, is to shorten things up. Don't even get me started on neopronouns. That is like a whole other thing, and I swear to God, you literally should just be using someone's name at that point. If you're gonna start inventing words, telling me to refer to you as like Z, Zier, how does someone even, you're gonna tell me I'm disrespecting you if I don't do that? If I walked up to you and said, call me Barbarb and Farbleyarp, just like some name that's like impossible to pronounce, and I told you you were being disrespectful if you didn't do it, you would tell me that's not a fair position to put you in because you literally can't pronounce that. You can't even remember it. Like the full word is barbarb and farbleyarp squayar shabaduz mafeeble badoop nash bayu sashikal nisboo squidijikal nismashuz mayus. If I told you to say that every time you referred to me, you would laugh in my face because how are you even going to remember that? I remember it, and that's my problem. It's that simple. So it's not a matter of respect or disrespect. It's just a matter of being realistic, being practical. And I know people who change their names for reasons completely unrelated to the LGBT community. They change their names. And yet they still have people who knew them before they changed their name who use their old name. And they don't call it a dead name. They don't make a whole thing out of it. They don't say that you're invalidating my new identity. It's just that you're just acknowledging that that's what that person knows you by. And it's not weird to you because you remember being referred to that way too. It's not like you reincarnated and you don't remember your past life, but then someone who knew you before you reincarnated comes up to you and uses a name that you don't remember. And you're like, I really don't even remember being that person, so I feel very weird every time you refer to me as that person. This is totally different. You do remember your old name. So hearing people who used to call you by that name call you by that name shouldn't be weird to you. It's just a reality of part of your past. And people who met you after you changed your name will have no trouble calling you by your new name because that's the first name they knew you by. So I'm not saying that you should never respect when someone changes their name, or that, you know, using someone's old name isn't sometimes disrespectful. What I'm saying is that it's not as big of a deal as people make it out to be, and it really has nothing to do with being trans. There are people who deliberately use old names to make people feel invalid. It's coming from a homophobic or transphobic place, and that's that person's problem. If they want to do it to make you feel like shit, that's their problem. They shouldn't be doing that. It's cruel, but lots of people do things with cruel intentions. And It's really not a social issue as much as it is a personal issue. And you know, you just have to learn how to not give assholes the power to ruin your day, because people are going to be assholes, and that's their problem. You want to have sympathy for them and say, you know what, that's really unfortunate. I really hope that you turn your life around, because you know, to be vibing on that low vibration, you it's just, it's got to suck. You got to be drained all the time trying to suck out my energy, trying to take my positivity away from me, because misery loves company. How unfortunate. That's just sad. Um, so just feel bad for them, and don't indulge them. Don't give them the time of day. Just just hope for the best for them, and get them on out of your life. That's all I can say. People who try to attack you, people who do things with the intention of hurting you, that has nothing to do with like invalidating trans identities and stuff, because there's people who have totally good intentions and they're trying their best to learn. And because of all these other people that are doing it deliberately, you're making it harder for the people who are trying. And the problem is too that it's some of the things, it's a little bit unfair, because it's like some things are just not making sense. So that's what I'm trying to find, a little bit of a balance between these two worlds. Because when I talk to people who are completely unfamiliar with the queer community, it's like they have no awareness of any of this stuff. Different sexualities, even like pansexual and terms like that. To me, that's just kind of like your business. If you want to say that you're pansexual or asexual or whatever, like that's totally fine. If you happen to not be interested in sex, and if you happen to not be interested in romance, if you're aromantic, you don't need to go around telling everybody that you're aromantic or asexual. Just, you know, just you're not interested in dating. You're not interested in sex. That's totally fine. No one's gonna bat an eye if that's what you say. But a lot of people don't know what asexual means. A lot of people don't know what aromantic means. And you know, you don't have to normalize those terms, because it's really not that big of a deal. It's just an absence of an interest in something. And that's totally valid. And you know, regarding pansexuality and stuff like that, a lot of these things that are like demisexuality, where they're more specific, where it's like, I'm only turned on by people that I know. I have to get the note to know them first. And it's like, I didn't ask about the nuances of what turns you on. All that I could possibly be interested in is if you're interested in dating men or women, or both. That's the only thing that could possibly mean anything to me. Unless I'm actually the person you're dating, in which case, you know, I want to get to know everything about you. However, these people don't just say that to the person they're dating. They say that to everybody because it's their identity, and then they don't like terms like gay and straight and lesbian, even though those terms again exist to simplify things. It's like, yeah, they still have a purpose. That word does still apply to you. I don't care if you say, well, I'm just me, or whatever. It's like, well, no shit. But that doesn't mean that you're not other things too. Like, I will acknowledge, for example, that I'm white, that I'm male. Does that mean that I'm like other white people or like other males? Probably not. I'm still just Tristan. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that are true about me. There are a lot of things that are true about me that I don't go around saying all the time. But if someone were to ask me, are you white? I wouldn't say no. If someone, you know, I wouldn't just say, no, I'm just Tristan. If someone said, are you a male? I'd say, no, I'm just Tristan. Someone said, are you gay? I wouldn't say, no, I'm just Tristan. I would tell them the truth. Because even though those things don't represent me, they're asking because they want to know. And I can just explain more about myself as they get to know me, if they want to. But I don't have to lie. Now, again, with the safety, sometimes you have to be dishonest about parts of yourself that you don't feel safe being open about. Unrelated to the topic, though. That's, again, your personal situation. You have to decide in the moment what you feel safe doing and not doing. But I'm talking more about people who make it their whole identity. People who are like, I'm just me. I don't like labels and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, but they exist to help us understand each other and to simplify things. And you don't need to always get that specific. If you really get that specific, you're going to realize that you are unique. And you might as well just say that you're you, and that you're not even like, and then at that point, what does that tell someone? Nothing. How else is someone supposed to get to learn you other than by comparing you to things that they know to be true about other people? There's no other way to get to know someone, because that's just how we learn. That's how we learn anything. It's through like comparison to things we already know. So, um, anyway, let's wrap this up because I went off on a little bit of a tangent, I think, and I wanted to keep this video a little bit more focused. So let's see if I have anything to wrap this up. Yeah, so if you have any questions, definitely post in the comments. I hardly get any comments or interaction on this channel, and I'm trying to grow it. So every bit of interaction is appreciated. Subscribe, like, YouTube is hiding my likes and stuff. There's just, YouTube is fighting me for some reason. But I'm trying my best to keep going anyway. I post every Tuesday at noon Eastern time. So yeah, definitely please interact in any way that you can, and leave multiple comments if you want to. I don't consider it spam. Um, it's good for the algorithm to just get some interaction going, so I appreciate that. Regarding the concept of being non-binary, again, I think that it's up to you. If you want to say that you don't really identify with masculine or feminine qualities in one direction, that's totally fine. Someone will get to know you and they'll realize that about you. And the way you dress, the way you present yourself, just do it to be authentic to yourself. That's all you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about coming up with a term like non-binary or calling yourself, saying that you're neither male nor female, because it may be true on some level, but it's not going to be true on a biological level unless you're intersex. And if that's the case, again, do whatever you want. It's fine. You have a unique situation on your hands if that's the case. Just handle it however you wanted to handle it. People will be open to asking you questions, to learning about you, and I'm sure people will find you interesting because it's unusual. And you should find yourself interesting. Everything that makes you unique, everything that makes you you, you should be interested in it. You should be interested in how you can explore it, what you can do about it. Even if you have a disability, don't think of it as a disability. Think of it as an opportunity to view life in a different way instead of just kind of moseying about, just doing things the way everyone else does them. So don't be offended too if someone's interested in you. Don't like say, oh, well, you're only interested in me because of this. It's like, well, sure, some people are doing it from a low level, dark place where they're just kind of like a child with a magnifying glass, treating you like a science experiment, but there also are just people who are curious and they still will respect you as a person. And you just have to learn how to discern when someone is treating you with respect and when someone isn't, which is a separate topic, has nothing to do with the LGBT community, it just has to do with general interactions with other people and how to make sure you're being treated right. But there's nothing wrong with being curious about someone who has an unusual circumstance. If I met someone with 3 arms, I would be curious. I would be trying to get to know that person, and I would treat them with just as much respect and dignity as I would anyone. But I'd still want to know what it's like. I'd still want to know how that works. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. So it's just be a little less judgmental, be a little bit less cynical about the way that you view other people, and just relax. I filmed this video with daylight, which I normally do with that ugly ass yellow light on. I don't know if this looks good, but I feel good about it. I feel like, it's a nice day out. I wanted this to have a little bit of more like uplifting energy. So, yeah, in conclusion, it's not immoral, it's not unnatural, and who gives a shit if it's normal? Make sure that you're treating other people with respect and dignity. Make sure that you're being treated with respect and dignity. Please be an adult. Don't just be getting into fistfights with people online or otherwise. Obviously, it would be metaphorical if it's online, but I see that kind of shit. I see it in comment sections. Don't just get into comment wars. Don't leave an asshole comment if you're someone who's against all of this stuff. Just act like an adult. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful or healing in some way. It's always the goal on this channel, and just in general in my life. I never want to make anybody's day worse. I'll leave it like that. So I hope to see you again when I post next week. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and again, I appreciate every bit of interaction that you give me on this video or this channel. And I'll put the link to my other channel in the description too. I do live streams and stuff on that channel. There's music. There's stuff on my other channel that's interesting to me. So That'll be in the description. Uh, Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week, hopefully.